published report calling for changes to the Kenyan governing system was welcomed with fanfare by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Leaders from each of Kenya's counties gathered for the presentation of the Building Bridges initiative. The report recommends creating more senior political posts, including that of a Prime Minister. It also suggests increasing financial support to county governments. The BBI report comes after President Kenyatta reconciled with his longtime rival Raila Odinga following the 2017 national election. The election was hotly contested, with around 100 people losing their lives. Now, to help us break down that report, we're joined by CGTN's Wilkister, Nyabwa, and AREBA OMWOYO, an advocate of the High Court here in Kenya. Wilkister, I begin with you. That report has quite a few suggested changes. Can you walk us through them?
Thank you, Penina. Well, when you look at the report, the most glaring issue is simply the radical shift, the proposed radical shift in the governance structures and the systems. And we do see that the position of Prime Minister makes a comeback. This is a position that was previously occupied by Kenyatta's rival, Raila Odinga. And so we do see that this position makes a comeback, but there are a raft of other recommendations. Perhaps we can take a look at the launch of the BBI report in this report that was filed earlier. Cabinet secretaries, governors, members of parliament and leaders of political parties from across the political divide assembled at the Bomas of Kenya early Wednesday morning for the launch of the Building Bridges initiative report. This crowned 20 months of work by a task force tasked with the responsibility of creating the building blocks for a stable and united Kenya.
We are here talking about their peace. And once we assure them and we give them an enabling environment, these 47 million people are mature enough to elect the leaders that they want. Ours is to enable them to do so.
The BBI task force was assembled in the aftermath of the closely contested 2017 presidential election. The recommendations aim, among other things, to address the historical issues which cause cycles of violence and political strife every election cycle. The Building Bridges report is aimed at bridging the gap in the country. It proposes a radical shift in the country's governance structures. If the proposals were adopted, Kenyans would continue to elect their president, who remains the head of state and government, with the deputy president as his assistant. The president would then appoint a leader from the largest party or coalition in parliament as prime minister, this appointment subject to approval by parliament. The task force has also proposed radical changes to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. It recommends a 3-year contract term to the commissioners, which can be renewed once, to ensure every new commission determines its own direction.
We have also resolved that counties should get more money, at least 35% of the revenue.
A section of political leaders have registered their objections to the proposals, saying they are likely to be politicized.
The recommendations and the proposals that have been put forward that will form the basis of our discussion, to a good extent, Your Excellency, informs us on how to build institutions to get our politics away from personalities and ethnicities to institutions that will carry all of us, irrespective of who we are, where we come from, the language we speak, or the political party we subscribe to.
The report appears to lead Kenya to a referendum, with all proposals made likely to come through bills or policy changes. Wilkister, Nyabwa, CGTN. Well, Penina, it is worth noting that there were over almost 5,000 delegates at Bomas of Kenya during that launch yesterday, and among these were leaders, political leaders, as well as members of the clergy from different parts of the country, each of them just looking at the report, wanting to internalize it, to acquaint themselves with it, and to figure out whether it was something that would have good things for their people, something that they should ask the people that they represent to get behind, but it is really still part of a larger conversation. I don't know, maybe AREBA can give us insights into this. AREBA, what do you think about this report? Do you think this is what Kenya needs right now?
First of all is that Kenya does not need a report, but we already have it. I've been on record saying that we do not lack laws that are supposed to be implemented. If by and large you look at that report on the sections that I've been able to look, if we really wanted to move this country forward, we should have implemented the laws that we have currently. Because most of the issues that are covered there is already a mechanism, as we are speaking currently, of implementing the same. If we really did implement the current constitution, we did implement the other laws that are there, then we didn't really need to have that report. But here we are. We have the report. We have to read it and discuss it.
All right. So, Wilkister, let me just bring you back in, because that's AREBA's opinion. We don't need one as a country. How are Kenyans themselves, though, responding to that report?
Well, I will say that the reaction has been immediate. It does appear that Kenyans were waiting. They really wanted to see what was in the report. And since yesterday, a number of them have been reading and sharing. Today, I have seen a number of youth actually just assembling in social media. I think they had a meeting time earlier where they were going to discuss it, to go through it, to talk about the parts that are relevant to them. And we're seeing this is happening also in different places. Some are gathering physically, some are exchanging views on social media. There are those who think that this could be exactly what Kenya needs. This could start a national dialogue about issues that have long been kept in the dark, and others feel, like AREBA does, that it is highly unnecessary and that really we should work with what we have. But for good or for bad, whether they support it or not, it has kicked off a national conversation and a dialogue which leaders hope that will lead to the smooth passage of the report. But right now, it's just members of the public trying to acquaint themselves with the document and to see what it holds for them. Penina.
And I do think, Wilkister, that dialogue is very necessary. Just coming to you, AREBA, one of the proposals in that report is the creation of more senior political positions to curb electoral violence. Is that the solution?
I mean, first of all, let's look at where we're coming from before we had this report. We agree that after the 2017 elections, we had a very chaotic kind of doing things. And when the two gentlemen came together and shook hands, we saw relative calm. But where I'm arguing that is that if indeed the pieces of law that we have currently were fully implemented, and if we really respected the law as a country, we did not need to have the two people shake hands. But then, where are we now, right now? The two gentlemen have shook their hands. They have spent taxpayers' money. We have the 9-point agenda. We have the report. Now, does the report address the concerns of the common Kenyans? By and large, I would feel that it looks so flowery from the top. But digging deeper, we might really need to just say, let's implement the laws that we have fully instead of trying to come up with more pieces of law.
And I think that is something that has come up a lot of times. We've had these kinds of conversations, implementation really being the key.
Yes.
Thank you very much for those insights. We have to leave it there for now. AREBA OMWOYO in studio with us, Wilkister, Nyabwa as well. Thank you both for joining us.